If I could bring you in, Gugulethu, I mean, I was reading a research report which says that many whites are very fixed in their knowing, you know, that whites are being thrown onto the streets as blacks are hogging all the jobs. But a recent report showed that 99% of white graduates will find jobs, whilst only 74% of black counterparts do. So there's been an exaggeration of fear, it seems, on both ends of the spectrum.
Of course. On both ends, I don't know what the black people are supposed to have been fearing. I mean, I think that black people have actually tried very hard to encourage white people to stay and to be a part of the Rainbow Nation. So, but white fear, I mean, it's the same as it was under apartheid. There was this fear of blackness, you know, and I haven't seen any white people living in townships. I haven't seen any white people living in poverty. So it really is a bit rich that Mr Gumede in Johannesburg could be pointing fingers at Mr Malema for having whatever price his watch is. It could have been a gift. Why shouldn't he wear an expensive watch? Why shouldn't he wear expensive clothes? Why should he live in poverty?
William, how do you respond to that? You know, that we are happy to criticize Africans who are doing rather well within the system.
Absolutely. You know what? I think what we must do, we must applaud Africans who do very well through hard work, do very well, and so on merit and so on. Now, the problem is what's happening in South Africa. We also have to be honest, of course. You know, the big story is, and the reality is, that whites are doing much, much better. Not only that, they have the social capital that they built through apartheid, education, property, all sorts of things. They can leave the country anytime. If you're black, you don't have the skills, you can't leave the country. You know, if the country goes down, if you're a black person, you're going to suffer. And the same with crime. If you're black and you live in the township, you're likely to be murdered, you know, 1,000 times more than any white person. You know, and the same with school, education, and so on. That is the reality, these are the facts. But we must also not try then to hide, you know, what we have developing now in South Africa, inside the, you know, ANC and some of the black elite, is a bling culture, a culture where, you know, people only look after themselves, their own individuals. We don't have the sense of solidarity for other black people, but those people who are benefiting individually, they use the black struggle to make their own money and enrich themselves. And that is a very important thing that we can have to deal with it, you know.
Okay, if I could bring Thandi here. Sorry, William. Sorry, William. If I could bring Thandi here in terms of what the ANC can do. I mean, it seems like Zuma is between a rock and a hard place on this one. How is he going to maintain the African identity of his country? We're talking about 80% of the population who are African, as well as managing the economic problem of transferring power to the majority, which needs to happen.
Yes, I think the difficulty that Zuma has is that they have we tied ourselves in the ANC at the time of negotiation. We had the political right to vote. We didn't look at what the global interests were doing in tying ourselves to GATT, to IMF regulations, structural adjustment, and before you know it, we can't even build houses for our people in order for our people to enjoy the richness of South Africa. Yeah. I think what Zuma has done, and I applaud him for, is to open up the dialogue. Yeah. Under the Mandela, and we were respecting Mandela, rightly so, and also respecting the time he spent in jail. We then, under Thabo, we assumed that our Mr. Mbeki is an economist, and so therefore he might know how to change 400 years of colonialism and 50 years under apartheid, and then we trusted them. But I think now, with the openness that is coming up, people must be allowed to say what is wrong. We have one disadvantage in South Africa, which the British normally criticize in other countries. We don't have a left opposition in the country.
Well, this is the danger that William was alluding to, that the ANC being seemingly, I mean, where is the opposition? When it comes to the next election, it's almost guaranteed that they are going to get in. So under those kind of circumstances, what measures can South Africans take to ensure that democracy isn't a joke in South Africa?
Well, it's not a joke. Come on. We've got a new party called COPE. Some ANC members left with Thabo Mbeki's outing, and they formed a new party. They didn't get the votes, but the people will choose who the people want. And the people seem to really appreciate the ANC. I'm not too sure why, but...
Because they're there. Because they're different from the previous regimes.
There is COPE, that's from the ANC itself. Why didn't COPE do that well? Democratically, there is no threat or undermining of our democracy, but you're absolutely right. What Julius Malema and Jacob Zuma really has to allow him to do this. What's going on now is that we are able to actually express what we feel. And we are able to say, let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about nationalism and nationalization of our resources, which we couldn't before.
Well, William, if I could bring you in, do you think what we are discussing here, the nationalization, the transfer of power, do you think that's likely to drive more white South Africans out of South Africa, or are they willing to be part of the power sharing?
Yeah, I think we're having the wrong discussion here, and I don't think we should focus on whites. I think we should focus on blacks.
Okay.
I think we're becoming too preoccupied about whites and not, what's happening with blacks and how do we deal with poverty.
But we are discussing race relations.
I think, in terms of nationalization, the point is, again, if there are people who push nationalization, I support nationalization, but I'm afraid to say there are people like Julius Malema who are not honest. They're supporting it only for opportunistic reasons.
Okay.
Only
we're clear on your point of view. I'm afraid the discussion time is against us. We have to stop there, William. I'm afraid that's the end of the discussion. But obviously, it's a very heated topic, and it is a question of how does transfer of power happen in a non-violent way within a situation like South Africa. Please let us know what you think. Email africa@presstv.co.uk. Now, time for a quick look at some other encouraging stories from the continent.
Mozambique's National Cashew Institute has reported the biggest cashew nut production in 3 years. The once world cashew export leader is seeing signs of its industry recovering slowly. Construction of Lesotho's new Metalong Dam and raw material pumping station is set to start in early 2011. The Metalong program is part of Lesotho government's efforts to secure long-term reliable water supply in the country. Rwanda's telecom industry will get a boost with the country's latest fiber optic network, transmitting large bandwidth from the capital Kigali to Gutana border through Uganda, Kenya, and the East African coast. Operators in the country would also be able to link their existing fiber optic infrastructure with a pipe to provide more affordable and reliable telecom services in Rwanda.
I'm afraid that's it for today. Many thanks again to all of you who've been sending comments to us. Please be encouraged to do so by emailing africa@presstv.co.uk, or you can text us at +44 78 0000 8086. Don't forget the messages will be charged at your local operator rates. A big thank you to today's guests for a very, very exciting discussion. They were Gugulethu, Mseleku, Thandi, Makiwane, and from Johannesburg we had William Gumede. Thank you for watching. Please join me, Vuyiswa, and the rest of the Africa Today team next week.